Morning, everybody.
Morning, ma'am.
Today's very good morning. Today's class is about what are we supposed to do? Yes, core periphery model by Friedman. Before that, any doubts in the last class? Anything that you have? We go through the notes. Any doubts that you have with respect to last class? If there is any doubt, you can put it in the chat box. All right, so let's start today's class. It's about core periphery, one of the economic theory of regional imbalance, core periphery model. I'm sorry, not economic theory, it is a spatial concept theory of Friedman, like core periphery model. So development in total, it has a bias, developmental bias. We call it as developmental bias. What is this developmental bias? Some regions will be more preferred for development when compared to other regions. There will be some favored locations for development when compared to other places. There will be a core region, there will be a peripheral region, there will be a core region, and there will be a peripheral region. And this periphery, this peripheral region, this periphery or the surrounding regions, it is completely dependent on the core for its economic activities. That is core periphery model. There is a core region around which there is too many development, there is too many industries. It develops very rapidly. There is centralization of labor forces. There is centralization of factors of production. Everything is concentrated at core, or you can say that there is centralization or polarization, and there is agglomeration that is happening at the core. But as we move towards the periphery, the magnitude of the centralization, the magnitude of the factors of production, it decreases. Thus, the core is much more developed than periphery. And for every economic activity, the periphery is directly dependent on the core. It's directly dependent on the core. Now, this is what is being given by core periphery model of Friedman. Now, Friedman talks about four different stages of this core periphery model. Now, this is, let me tell you, this is something that is very closely connected to Rostov's stages of growth. This is very closely connected to Rostov's stages of growth. So first stages, as per him, stage one, the first stage is a pre-industrialized society with localized economies. A pre-industrialized society with localized economies. Stage number two is development of core and periphery. Development of core and periphery, which is equivalent to take-off stage. The third one is dispersion of economic activity into the peripheral areas. Dispersion of economic activities into the peripheral areas. And finally, number four, finally, emergence of spatial integration. And this is drive to maturity. Drive to maturity. I'm sure that you have done about Rostov stages.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So you know about takeoff stage, maturity, drive to maturity stage, and so on. So it can be compared. It can be compared to roster stages. So that's what I mean. So four different stages: pre-industrialized society with localized economies. Number two, development of core and periphery, which is equivalent to takeoff stages. Number three, dispersion of economic activity into the peripheral regions. Number four, emergence of spatial integration, which is the drive to maturity stage. Right. Now, let's describe about each of the stages individually. Stage one, a pre-industrialized society. There is no such development of core areas because it's pre-industrialized. Industry developed ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല ഇതുവരെ. So there is a pre-industrialized society. The core area is not developed. There are no strong concentration of industrialized regions in any part. There is no development of strong industries. Stage two, a single core develops. A single core develops, and this is favored by different factors, and thereby like capital moves to that core, labor moves to that core, uh, and there is a large peripheral area that will be developed, a large peripheral area that will be developed. And when I say that a peripheral area is getting developed, when there is a strong core is getting developed, what does that mean? Indirectly, I am referring to backwash effect that is happening. Yes or no? Backwash effect is happening. This peripheral area, people are moving towards the core. Labor is moving towards the core. Investment is moving towards the core. Industries is moving towards the core. So backwash effect is indirectly happening in the peripheral area, which means the peripheral area is drained of resources, human resources and physical resources. Stage three. This word should be there in your stage two. Backwash effects should be there in your stage two. Now, moving to this third stage. What's the third stage? It is about dispersion of economic activity into the peripheral zones. So there are many secondary cores which will develop due to spread effect. Now this word should be there in your stage three. Spread effect. What is spread effect? Opposite of backwash effect is spread effect, which is otherwise called as? Yes, it is trickle down. No. So this word should be there in your stage three when you're writing. So many secondary cores will develop mainly because of the spread effect. So peripheral area is also getting developed in the long run. And the exchange of or movement of labor, that would be better, movement of labor, movement of investment happens between this core and many secondary cores, because of which there will be large scale or regional development that will take place. Stage four talks about drive to maturity. A huge urban expansion begins to take place because of the development of cores, secondary cores. There is an urban expansion that will take place, and this will lead to expanding economy. Now, what will happen is there will be an equilibrium effect which will get developed because of the spread effect. There will be equilibrium between the core and the periphery, and there will be efficiency in terms of industries. There will be efficiency in terms of economic activities. Efficiency in പറയുമ്പോൾ if the industries will not be concentrated in one area, it will be efficiently spread. So this is one way which will lead to greater functional interdependence between the different cores. functional interdependence. All right. So those are the 4 stages of Friedman's core periphery model. Now we are moving on to export-based model. This is another model, different model, export-based model. Understand something, export-based model as well as regional multiplier model they are both very well applicable to developed countries. On the other hand, on the other hand, when I'm talking about Gunnar Myrdal's model, or if I'm talking about cumulative causation model of Gunnar Myrdal, or if I'm talking about core periphery model of Friedman, both are applicable to developing countries. Take this down. This is quite important. Friedman's model and Myrdal's model is applicable to developing countries. Export-based model, which we are going to read right now, and regional multiplier model, it is applicable to developed countries. Now, from the name itself, we can understand what is export-based model. There is more of export when compared to import. So you can say that there is an export surplus. There is an export surplus. So from industrial revolution, from the times of industrial revolution, countries like Britain, France, Germany, Spain, Portuguese, they started to export surplus of local production, and therefore they are getting large revenues in return. Okay, so this will lead to the setting up of export economy, export based economy. That will be, export sector will be a dominant sector, and that is nothing but export based model, with regard to developed countries. Another one is, so that will lead to, when there is too much of exports, when there is too much of revenue that a country is getting because of export, there will be a growth of dominant region, growth of a dominant, well-developed region, dominant and developed region, and there will be generation of surplus income, which will obviously raise the standards of living. Okay, so that is export-based model. Now we are moving on to regional multiplier model. This model says how economic growth in one particular region will lead to what is called as multiplier effect. It will lead to what is called as multiplier effect. For example, today, if I'm going to set up an iron and steel industry in one particular place, what will happen because of that? Next to that, there will be one motorcycle industry or automotive sector industry. There will be good infrastructure. For this iron and steel industry, we need electricity. So there will be good non-stop electricity supply in that region. There should be transport facilities for the movement of the iron and steel goods from that factory to the markets. So there will be good road networks that will be laid down. The employment in that region will be multiplied. Because of that, the standards of living of the people will be multiplied. The entire region will face a huge development. So this is what we call it as multiplying effect of an industry, multiplier effect of an industry. The process which started an industry will lead to equilibrium based development for that entire region. There will be dispersal of developmental activities throughout the region. There will be dispersal or diffusion of developmental activities throughout the region. So this is what we call it as multiplier effect of an industry, and that is given by regional multiplier model. All right, so they say set up an industry, set up as a good industry, you will have certain cumulative effect that is happening surrounding that industry, which is called as multiplier effect, and therefore that entire region will be getting developed. So these are the different theories of regional imbalances. These are the different theories of regional imbalances. So that covers regional imbalance chapter. I mean, the regional imbalance topic. Now we are moving on to another topic, which is, now from here onwards, there are two topics that I will be taking for you. In fact, if you look at the syllabus, where is the syllabus? Yes. If you look at the syllabus, we have regional developmental strategies. How many of you have the syllabus sheet with you? Make sure that you always take note of the syllabus. We have regional development strategies. We have environmental issues in regional planning. We have planning for sustainable development. Now, regional development strategies is something that we will be analyzing in detail in chapter number 8. Because we have backward area development program, desert development program, we have 5-year plans, hill area development program, watershed development program, command area development program, tribal area development program. And then we'll be having, I will be also teaching you some things which is not given in the syllabus, but it is still important. That is your some of the watershed development programs and some of the island based programs and stuff like that. So basically that regional development strategies will be doing in detail in chapter number 8, and I will be giving you notes with respect to regional development strategies pertaining to chapter number 4. Other generalized notes detailed analysis of developmental strategies will be doing in chapter number 8. So now we are starting with environmental issues in planning and planning for sustainable development, after which we will jump to chapter number 8. So let's do the first one. And here, let me again tell you, planning for sustainable development, it is something very, very generic idea. I will be giving you notes and I will be explaining small things about that. Environmental issues in planning is pretty important. So let's do that. Planning for sustainable development, first of all. So this is something where you'll be having the sustainable development programs of the United Nations. So they have released, they'll release world development reports. From that, you have to get some notes. So that notes, I have made a comprehensive list of the sustainable development practices. So that I will be sharing with you. So you have to write about some natural reserves, some national parks, sanctuaries, how ecological conservation becomes possible, how spreading regional environmental awareness amongst the people is a good thing. So how is protected the locations for endangered species, like you have Project Tiger, you have Project Elephant. You need to write about all of this because we are writing about planning for sustainable development. So we need to talk about how ecologically we can plan, how without disturbing the environment, how can we undertake planning process. So this is what you should be writing. I will be giving you detailed notes, but now let's quickly discuss these two topics. So the first one is for overall economic development. Let's say, for just here to the stories, it's just stories, nothing more than that. For overall economic development, we need to have an integrated approach where we are taking care of natural resources, human resources, and capital. So by natural resources, I mean, maybe you can take some running notes also. I have my notes from where I am discussing the issues. Maybe you can take some running notes if you think some things are important, but definitely I will be giving you notes also. Right. So what happens is natural resources comprises of what? Basically, it will have your land, water, some mineral resources, and stuff like that. So the point behind regional planning with respect to sustainable development is this. This is quite important. The principal idea behind sustainable development is this, in terms of regional planning, is to maximize your production, you're maximizing of your national output at the same time with minimal resource destruction, with minimal environmental destruction. This is the idea behind sustainable development. I repeat, maximizing your national output with minimal environmental destruction, or you can say with sustainable practices, with sustainable utilization of the resources or sustainable practices. So planning for sustainable development, it involves certain important principles. Number one, planning, it involves certain major principles. Number one, resources must be exploited in an economical manner. Resources must be exploited in an economical manner so that you minimize the wastage of resources, and at the same time you try to recycle the products, you try to convert the waste products into some economically viable byproducts, into some economically viable byproducts. So conversion of the waste products into economical viable byproducts, as well as minimizing your waste as much as possible. Resource efficiency is the first point. Second point, number two, as much as possible, conserve your renewable resources and try to be very, very conservative of your non-renewable resources. You have to use the renewable resources sensibly. You have to, as much as possible, you have to very, very cautiously use the non-renewable resources. Number two. Number three, we have to use scientific advancements and engage in multi-purpose usage of resources. If I'm using too much of coal, I should make sure that, suppose let's say that I am using coal to generate some thermal energy, maybe electricity. I should be making sure that in this process of using coal to heat up water, to produce steam, and then to produce electricity, the thermal power plants, I should make sure that the byproducts or the waste of the coal is also utilized for something else. Maybe some low quality, low grade coal can be used as charcoal. Maybe some fly ash that is generated can be used for laying down roads. Multi-purpose usage of a resource. This is what we call it as multi-purpose usage of a resource. That should be done. Number three. Number four, integrated planning. Integrated planning is important for development of economy in a sustainable manner. Integrated planning is important. Examples is, so we'll be learning about some multi-purpose river valley projects. Example is multi-purpose river valley project, where the same river, where the same water resource will be utilized for irrigation, for HEP, hydroelectric power production, for pisciculture, fish farming, pisciculture. What is it? Let me write it down. Multi-purpose river valley project, MP, multi-purpose river valley project, MPRVP. Pisciculture. So basically, fish cultivation. At the same time, the multi-purpose river valley project can also be used as flood control programs. So how can multi-purpose river valley projects can be used? Integrated planning, our example on either. Integrated planning is important for sustainable use of resources. And example of that, I'm giving you an example, which is multi-purpose river valley project. And how can multi-purpose river valley project can be used? The same water resource can be used for irrigation, HEP hydro power generation, pisciculture, at the same time for flood controlling. Fifth point, industrial locations should be planned in economically viable region. Industrial locations should be planned in economically viable region. Now, answer me whether, okay, yesterday you told me, no, Weber's industrial location model has not been done, right? So when that is done, you will understand this much more. But right now, example matram, just write it down. Just write it down, write down the example alone. And maybe when the central place theory of Christaral and Losch is done, you'll be understanding more. So for right now, just write the example. Industrial location should be planned in economically viable region. Example, the weight losing industries, such as iron and steel should be located near the source of raw material for achieving maximum profit and optimum utilization of resources. All right. Weight losing industries such as iron and steel should be located near the source of raw materials for achieving maximum profit and optimum utilization of resources. Now, why is iron and steel sector called as weight losing industry? What is this idea behind the placement of industries near the source of raw materials? This you will be taught in models and theories. For right now, if you are learning it, when you are learning things there, this point will be clear. But right now, for the sake of notes, just write this because I have to explain the whole theory. So just write this. Number 6. Prevention of environmental hazards like pollution created by automobiles and industries should be considered for sustainable developmental planning. Next point. So that is these 6 are the principles behind sustainable developmental regional planning. These are the 6 principles. I'm sure you got 6 points here. You got 6 points. Yes, right. Now, for planners, now write it down. For planners, for environmental planners, there are 2 basic approaches for resource management. Okay. Number 1, 2 approaches for resource management. Number 1, it is holistic approach. Do not write, listen. Number 1, holistic approach. Number 2, monistic approach. So what is holistic approach? You have to take environmental problems as well as the other regional problems together. That is holistic approach. When I'm talking about monistic approach, it's a narrow minded solution. It is a narrow minded solution for some particular problem. If I'm talking about environment problem, I will be trying to find a solution only for that environment problem. If I'm having poverty based problem, I will take solution only for poverty based problem. If I'm having a flood management problem, floods, if it is affecting a region very frequently, I will talk about only flood management problem. I will take solutions only for flood management. That is monistic way of seeing things. But let me tell you, if you have tribal issues, if you have flood water based problems, if you're having certain environmental problems in a single region, if you're having three problems like this, let's analyze this single region. Let's analyze this situation. Suppose, let's say that we are trying to solve the environment problem alone, which is the flood water problem or the environment problem alone. Let's say that I am constructing a dam so that flood waters are prevented. I am constructing a dam so that flooding of the river can be prevented to a certain extent. Now, what will happen when I'm constructing a dam? Won't I be taking a large amount of land from that area? Which means the tribal problem will be even more aggravated, because tribal people will be shifted, will be asked to relocate from that area. So if I'm not finding suitable places for rehabilitation of the tribal people, for the resettlement of the tribal people, won't tribal people's lives be even more difficult? So if I'm analyzing, if I'm having a monistic view, let me take care of only floodwater problem. Won't the tribals be affected? Their livelihoods will be affected. Their place of location will be changed in totality. Suppose, let's say that I am talking about environmental problems. There is some forest fire which is happening in the areas where the tribes are settling down. So we are analyzing, why is forest fires happening? Okay, there are so many invasive species right now in Himachal Pradesh, in Uttarakhand. There have been many forest fires because of the presence of many invasive species. So environmental problems, okay, forest fire is happening because of some invasive species. I found the first problem. Then I understood forest fire is also happening because of excessive cutting down of trees. Now trees are being cut down, which means the soil is not able to absorb the water, and many trees, whichever one or two tree, whichever is left also, it is not, the leaves are getting dried up. So there are many environmental problems. Dry leaves will obviously catch fire very easily. So deforestation is also one reason for forest fires. So then I will think, if I am linking the tribes with the environment, I can resolve this issue. If the tribes are allowed to settle in their places peacefully, and if they are undertaking their regular activities of cultivating some timber, getting some tendu leaves, getting some honey, then that region, that forest environment will not be disturbed. The tribe's livelihood will also be not disturbed. Floodwater will not happen. Flood is also maybe because of deforestation. Are you understanding this example? Everything is interrelated, and therefore, for environmental based planning sustainable development, for planning for sustainable development, the best approach is holistic approach and not monistic approach. All right, take down some notes. Management of environment encompasses two approaches. Number one, preservative, and number two, conservative. Preservative and conservative. Preservative approach deals with management of the environment without any kind of human interference with the nature. But this approach is very unrealistic. The second approach, that is conservative approach, emphasizes on human adjustment with physico-biotic environment, with physico-biotic environment in relation to technocratic behavior of human beings. For environmental planners, next paragraph. For environmental planners, there are two approaches to resource management. Number one, holistic approach. This believes that, put a small hyphen and continue writing. Number one, holistic approach, put a small hyphen and continue writing. This believes that environmental problems can be tackled by solving all the problems together. Number two, monistic approach. Stresses, put a small hyphen and write, continue writing. This stresses on narrowly defined solutions for particular problems. Okay. Now, one person, J.N.R. Jeffers. J.N.R. Jeffers gave a five-stage solution, a five-stage planning methodology for resource management. Okay. So he says, first one is, we need to identify what are our goals and objectives. Stage one is identification of goals and objectives. After that, we need to, do not write, just listen. After that, we need to take down, or we need to take up some of the research and development, R&D activity to understand the relevant issues or the problems that we have with respect to resource management. The third one is, what are we going to do to solve these issues? What is the modus operandi? What are we going to find, or how are we going to find a solution for this? And finally, the fourth one is, implement the specific strategy that you have designed. And finally, the fifth one, monitor the strategy. You are implemented the strategy in the fourth stage. Now monitor the strategy, and if there is any changes to be done here and there, make some continuous feedback and do the certain modifications to your plan. So take down, J.N.R. Jeffers has formulated a five-stage planning for land use and resource management. Stage one, identification of common agreement on goals and objectives. Stage two, research and development for adequate understanding of the relevant issues. Number three, stage three, identifying modus operandi for fulfillment. Identifying modus operandi. How are you going to work on it? What is your solution for it? What is your mode of operation? That is modus operandi. Identification of modus operandi for fulfillment of the objectives. Stage four, selection and implementation of a specific strategy. Stage five, monitoring results along with modification of plans according to changing demands and values. For sustainable planning, continue in the next paragraph. For sustainable planning and development, resources are further categorized as recyclable and inexhaustible resources. So recyclable and inexhaustible resources. It is therefore extremely important for planners to use such inexhaustible resources like wind, sun, solar power, for our future survival. For our future survival. Conservation of nature, continue writing. Conservation of nature for sustainable development and planning has the following objectives. Number one, to preserve quality environment that has, no, to preserve quality environment, that's enough. Number two, to ensure the ecology of flora and fauna to be preserved along with renewal of resources. Ecological conservation may be achieved by following the measures such as, and put some write some point wise. Ecological conservation may be achieved by following measures such as, number one, planning of nature reserves, national parks and sanctuaries. Number two, protected locations for endangered species. Example, Project Tiger, Project Elephant, etc. Next one, formulation, enactment, and implementation of law. Formulation, enactment, and implementation of law. Number four, effective measurement of endangered species population. Next one, research to study biological behavior of animals. Finally, last point, spreading environmental awareness amongst common people, among common people.
നാലാമത്തെ പോയിന്റ് തൊട്ടൊന്നും പറയാമോ? കിട്ടിയില്ല.
Which point? Research to study biological behavior of animals. Spreading environmental awareness among common people. Okay, now continue writing. Man-made constructions such as huge dams, oil pipelines, industries, have raised alarmingly, particularly in the last few decades. So write down case study of Aswan Dam, Egypt. Lack of adequate planning in the case of Aswan Dam has caused major problems like number one, take down in points. Number one, siltation of reservoirs. Take down and I will tell you how this can be utilized for your answers. Siltation of reservoirs. Number two, what is siltation of reservoirs? Okay, first of all, what is siltation? What is this problem of siltation? So basically, let's say that I am constructing a dam. I am constructing a dam. I am blocking a particular river. Okay, so I'm constructing a dam, I'm blocking a river, storing water. Now, what will happen is this river, in its course of way, it will bring a lot of sediments, silt, clay, etc. Now, this sediments will be settling down in the dam, and let's say if the dam's capacity is some 1000 TMC of water. After some point of time, because of this excessive sedimentation which has been brought down by the rivers, this dam will not be able to store this much volume of water. Rather, the capacity to store the water will be highly reduced, maybe 500 TMC. After that, it will start overflowing. So that you know what will happen, the surrounding low-lying regions nearby that dam will face flooding problems. Siltation is a major problem with regard to most of the dams in India. Siltation is one of the major problem with regard to most of the dams as well as rivers with respect to India. This river which is going in Pala, CSIP, somewhere backside, you are having this river, Meenachal River. There also, there is a lot of problems of siltation. Like now the river is all dried up. You know what should the people, the administrative bodies should do? They should take the sand deposits from the river bed and enlarge the river, so that if something like rain comes, like what we have witnessed a couple of months back, there was some intense flooding that happened in Kottayam district and all of that, no? So when such flooding happened, the river's carrying capacity will be high. If they are not if they're not undertaking desiltation of the rivers, for example, our very own Meenachal River, if they are not undertaking desiltation, tomorrow after a small rainfall also, this region of Pala will be flooded. Siltation is a major problem with respect to dams in India and with respect to rivers in India. Did you guys understand what is this problem of siltation? It's a very, very major problem. You understood this explanation of siltation? Yes. Yes, it's a very important thing. Maybe you have to write this down like somewhere also. Like I will explain where this can be used in your answer, right? Okay, so first thing is number one, case study of Aswan Dam. Number one, siltation of reservoirs. Number two, reduction of plankton. Reduction of plankton in the lower course of river Nile. In the lower course of river Nile has adversely affected species like Sardine fishes, basically. Sardine, mackerel, lobster, etc. Number 3, these reservoirs are affected heavily by snails, which cause deadly diseases, to both human life as well as aquatic life, to both human and aquatic life. Okay, this point also needs to be explained. Snails, you know what is snails, no? The one that we having a hard shell on top of it. So it'll be something. Okay, let's not draw. But yeah, I believe you understand what is snail. So it will have a hard shelled top at its body. It'll look very nice. It'll look all cute. It'll look all pavam. But the thing is, snails are an invasive species. Snails are not an invasive species. It's like more of an infestation. It's like a pest. Yeah, that would be a better word. It is a pest. It is an infestation of pest. If suppose tomorrow, if you're seeing a lot of snails in a farm, farms also will have snails because they will collect water and there will be snails even in the farms. If you're seeing a lot of snails, it's not cute. Do not, girls would say snails look cute. No, snails are an infestation. They are a pest. They will eat many things, your crops, or maybe your valuable things. It will keep growing. Also, snails will lead to the spread of many aquatic diseases. So snails are an infestation. It is a pest. So this Aswan Dam, after the construction, the population of snails have increased. All right. So that is about the third point. Now going to the next one. Increased occurrence of diseases like malaria, number 5, increased soil salinity, which has led to reduced soil fertility. Increased soil salinity, which has led to reduced soil fertility. These are the different drawbacks of the construction of Aswan Dam. Okay. Now, what happens is there are many problems which came up with regard to construction of Aswan Dam. On the other hand, when things are sustainably planned, when there is a proper regional planning while construction of a dam, there will be good effects that you can actually see. So for that, you can take down case study of Trans-Alaska project. Case study of Trans-Alaska project. On the contrary to Aswan Dam, Trans-Alaska project was implemented after adequate environmental planning. Therefore, the pipeline route carefully avoided seismic active zone of Alaska as well as the delicate marine environment of the Pacific Ocean. Without proper planning, the project could have caused disasters like discharge of effluents, thawing of permafrost region, loss of valuable flora and fauna. loss of valuable flora and fauna. Now understand, Alaska is somewhere close to my permafrost region. If I did not plan it sufficiently, then my Arctic ice, my permafrost, excuse me, my permafrost will also be melted in due course of time. So this Trans-Alaska project is an example of well-planned project. The Aswan Dam, on the other hand, is not a very well-planned project. Okay, now let me tell you where you can utilize this. First thing is, if you are asked to write about any multi-purpose river valley project and explaining the positives of it and the negative of it, you can use these points: negative siltation, reduction of the plankton, there can be snails infestation, there can be diseases like malaria. So these are the negative effects. You can also write about, if it was not properly planned, it could lead to collection point of effluents, industrial effluents. You can use these points as though it is a negative point. Are you understanding this? You can modify the pipeline route. If it is not carefully planned, it will lead to loss of aquatic life and flora and fauna. If you are using something that we are studying here as a negative point for a general MPR, for a general MPRVP question, for a general river valley project question, it is also correct. When you are using siltation of reservoirs, which will lead to flooding in such areas, that is perfectly correct. For example, Kottayam floods or Kerala floods, which happened recently in the year of 2021. Though it is a cloudburst phenomena, things got aggravated because of man-made reasons like faulty river management practices. If you're writing, it is perfectly correct answer. And it is not just a perfectly correct answer, it is a most correct answer. Because you are giving one reason, you are giving an example of a case study also. If you're quoting Aswan Dam, it is a perfect case study. Always geography, UPSC geography questions should have examples like this. So the reason why I am dictating these points is not just, nobody is going to directly ask you problems of Aswan Dam, problems of Trans-Alaska project. No, these points you should be in a position to take these points and utilize it somewhere else. Are you understanding me? Are you understanding the trick that I've just now told you? Any doubts on this? Are you understanding this point, the small trick? This is something that we cannot, I cannot teach you everything, but once I'm giving you some notes here, you should be in a position to utilize it elsewhere. Is there any issue with this? Right then. So take down one more thing. Take down one more thing. One small what can I say? One small flow chart kind of thing that you can utilize, which I have utilized. Maybe you can utilize that also. Somewhere you can utilize this. Maybe have the heading as major or multiple roles of biosphere reserve. Okay, and then have because why am I doing this is something that I want you to learn. I want you to learn how you can create some charts like this. The first important role is, of course, conservation role. You can conserve flora, fauna, and ecosystem conservation. Conservation of multiple genetic factors or genetic multiple major gene pools. You can write like that. Conservation of major gene pools in terms of major gene pools in terms of flora, fauna, and local ecosystems. So the first role is conservation role. Number 2, developmental role. Association of environment with sustainable development. Association of environment with sustainable development. And number 3, the third important role is logistics role. Logistics role. We can set up an international network for research and monitoring. Setting up of an international network of biosphere reserves for research and monitoring and borrowing the best practices, the best standard of procedures, the best SOP, the best standard of procedures from the other countries. That is logistics role. So this is something that you can incorporate it in your answer writing.
Logistic role ഒന്നുകൂടി പറയാമോ?
Okay. Logistics role. Setting up an international network for research and monitoring and borrowing the best operating procedures from the other biosphere reserves. Maybe you can write example MAB project of United Nations. So MAB, Man and Biosphere Reserve. So MAB project. These are just your imagination. This is, where it go? Okay, so these are just your imaginations. This is like sky is the limit. You can do anything with regard to such flowcharts. This is not a hard and fast flowchart. Either ningalku oru example kodukkan vendiyana I'm bringing this flowchart. You can do anything like this. All right, so that concludes my sustainable developmental planning. We are moving on to environmental issues in regional planning. Take down the heading, environmental issues in regional planning. Quick question, just for my own self-satisfaction. Did you guys understand how you can manipulate one information and use the same thing for different questions? Did you understand this concept? One information can be used for different questions. It's not like you cannot see. UPSC is a vast syllabus. You cannot possibly read every syllabus. So if I'm teaching one thing, try to have that in your mind and manipulate the information and use it for some question, another question for something else. Okay, I am just giving you tricks. I'm just your guide for your preparation. So this is a way in which I have studied and I'm sharing it with you. All right, so let's take your responses. Yes, perfect then. Okay, if you understood, then I'm happy. Okay, fine. So we are moving on to environmental issues in regional planning. The next and the last topic of your chapter number 4. Here we have to take down some things. See, first thing is environmental issues in regional planning. The first thing is you need to understand why do we need to take care of the environment, because this we are going to thrive, we are going to survive in an environment. The general points, do not just write down, just listen. We are going to survive in this environment, we are going to have the earth for a long period of time, so we need to have a sustainable mode of living. We need to make sure that the ecological footprint the carrying capacity of earth is not disturbed, so that what will happen, so that we can maintain this earth for a long period of time. So for the case of development and environment are two different, we are thinking that it is two different ends of a bar magnet. If there is development, of course environment will get damaged, because that's the mentality of Kerala government, right? Kerala is a very, very conservative government in terms of environment, in terms of development. Like when I was in Trivandrum, I'm talking about 2008-10, that point of time. When I was there, I could practically see that communist people, the government in general, resist development as much as possible, which is good, no complaints about it. But the thing is, when the other states are destroying environment so much, here people are not even willing to cut a tree. If something happens, they are willing to plant it elsewhere. So such association with environment, they think that development and environment cannot go hand in hand. But that's not the case. Development and environment can go in hand. Like in Tamil Nadu, for example, if suppose they are destroying the forest which is there for highway construction, if they are destroying, there will be a lot of afforestation programs. Miyawaki project is one such thing. Have you heard of Miyawaki forest? Important current affairs, very, very important for your prelims. Have you heard of Miyawaki project? Basically, okay, you have not heard about it. Miyawaki is basically an afforestation project, but not any afforestation project. It is an afforestation of native species which will always grow in a region. Certain species which will be always favorable to the temperature of Tamil Nadu. We call it as native forest species. We will be constructing that, very, very importantly, not in any place, but in urban spaces. In urban spaces, we'll be creating native forest, community forest kind of thing in urban spaces, so that there will be some amount of green belt that will be created amidst the cities. Chennai is indulging, IIT Madras is indulging in a lot of Miyawaki forest activity. So that is something that everybody should encourage. So Miyawaki forest, maybe you can take that in a corner of your textbook. Important for your prelims also, right? So the idea is development alone is not good. The preservation of forest alone is also not good. There should be a balance between them, and therefore economic development must be oriented with economic development must be oriented with distributive justice, where the future generations needs of the environment are also taken into account. In fact, this is what we call it by the definition of sustainable development also. Keeping in mind the needs of the future generations, right? So there should be distributive justice, there should be equilibrium of development, there should be equilibrium of development, and this development should be taking place along with optimum utilization of resources, not excessive utilization, not underutilization, optimum utilization of resources. And while doing all of this, we have to have environmental impact assessment. We have to continuously assess what impact we are having upon the environment by means of such developmental activities, and that is the crux behind environmentally aware regional planning practices. That is the crux behind environmentally aware regional planning practices. All right. So economic development must be going hand in hand with distributive justice. There should be equilibrium of development, which means the developmental activities must be shared between the community. The developmental activities must be shared between the community. At the same time, by distributive justice, we mean that there should be sustainable development where we are taking care of the needs of the future generations also. At the same time, all this should take place with optimum utilization of resources. And therefore, we should always undertake environmental impact assessment activities while we are undertaking development, while we are undertaking any form of developmental activities. This is the crux behind environmentally aware regional planning practices. All right, let me move forward. In the year of 1972, something interesting happened. We had the Stockholm Conference. And for the first time, we came up with the definition of sustainable development. We came up with the idea of undertaking or taking up environment in the national policies, in the national policy making. And then in the year of 1980, we had the Tiwari Committee report. Tiwari Committee report, where they first of all said, see, it is time that we take environment into the planning strategies. Whatever planning strategy that we are going to come up with, we are definitely going to take care of the environment also. At the same time, it is high time that we set up the Ministry of Environment. Thus came the ministry, a separate ministry for environment also. Now let's understand about the various regional developmental issues or environmental issues with respect to regional planning. Take down number 1, or you may just listen, we'll be giving you notes also. 1 second. Right. So listen, environmental issues. What are the different environmental issues that we have? The first thing is, the very first thing is deforestation, destruction of forest resources that can happen because of maybe some laying down of roads, highway extension, industrialization, etc. Deforestation is the first environmental issue that we should be taking into account while we are undertaking regional planning. So forest resource, in continuation of point one, forest resource, it acts like a carbon sink. Yes, it acts like a carbon sink. So when this forest resource is destroyed, all that carbon would escape to the atmosphere. It will lead to different manifestations of climate change. It will lead to different manifestations of climate change. Rainfall will decrease. Your soil fertility will decrease. Okay, so I repeat, deforestation, which happens because of roads, highway extension, industrialization. This is the first economic environmental issue with respect to regional planning. Forest act as carbon sink. What is carbon sink? First of all, carbon sink, that means it will absorb the carbon dioxide, it will release the oxygen. So it will intake all the carbon that is there in the atmosphere. So it will act as a carbon sink. When you are destroying the carbon sink, when you are removing the forest, what will happen? It will lead to maybe fall in rainfall, increased climate aberrations, increased climate change events, or extreme climate change events. That would be a better word. Extreme climate change events, reduced rainfall, poor soil fertility, soil erosion, right? So there will be over exploitation of forest resources, and that will lead to what is this doubt? Is that what the committee had? No, the committee said environmentally we should be taking care of when we are doing regional planning, we should also take into account the environment. That's the only recommendation, and we set up the Ministry of Environment after that. So that is the committee report. I mean, the committee just gave importance of environment in any of our planning strategies. I am just giving you, I gave you a heading also, environmental issues with respect to regional development. Adana first point, I'm just discussing here. Environmental issues in regional development. That's your topic actually. That's your syllabus paper topic. Your topic says environmental issues in regional planning. I'm discussing that topic now. Before whatever I've discussed till here, it's just an introduction. This is your syllabus. Clear? What was I discussing? Yes. So over exploitation of the forest resource, over exploitation, deforestation, these are your major environmental issues with respect to regional planning. Number 2, coal mining, coal extraction, or mining of any resource, mining of any mineral resource. What will that, how will that affect the environment? See, when you are mining any given resource, it is quite natural that land degradation will take place. We call that as land scarification. Land degradation will take place, which is nothing but land scarification. All right. Now, what will happen because of that is landslides, land degradation. The stability of the land will be disturbed, which means there will be landslides. The burning of coal, like when you are extracting, there is a process called coal gasification also. So there will be coal fires in coal mines. Have you heard of this? There will be coal fires in coal mines, and these will lead to land air pollution. This will lead to air pollution. And when you're mining any other mineral resource also, there will be land degradation, the land quality will be destroyed, and such things. So that in total, we call it as the process of land scarification. The land will be totally scarred, meaning it will be destroyed. All right. The next important environmental issue, point number 3. Over exploitation of marine resources. Obviously, this will lead to marine pollution. It will lead to marine pollution. It will disturb the marine ecology. As well as if you're, when you have to talk about oil spillage issues also here. Oil spillage issues. You have to talk about dumping of waste in the ocean. This usually happens in developing countries and least developed countries. Developed countries will dump certain electrical waste, certain plastic waste in the waters of the developing countries and in the least developed countries. So that is also one problem. Next one, number 4. Agricultural I think we have lost it. I think I'm back. So let me share my screen. Okay, so we were discussing about agricultural issues, and I was discussing about green revolution. And I told you how maybe if I'm talking about green revolution, then the first point behind green revolution is increased use of fertilizers, increased use of high yielding variety seeds, HYV seeds. These two have led to poor soil, or you can say degradation of soil happened in long course of time. Degradation of soil has happened in long course of time. So even agriculture in the name of development is having certain issues, certain environmental issues. I repeat, in means of development, we started green revolution as a method of achieving development in agriculture, but that development also is having some detrimental issues. So that is about agricultural development and environmental issues. So that's the reason you can quote for that, you can quote the Green Revolution. And that is the reason we are talking about second Green Revolution. Green Revolution 2.0. We are talking about Green Revolution 2.0, where more of organic methods of cultivation needs to be encouraged, because the first Green Revolution was not successful throughout. Therefore, now we are talking about Green Revolution 2.0, or the second Green Revolution, and we are talking about bringing Green Revolution to the Eastern India. We are talking about bringing Green Revolution to Eastern India scheme. So these two schemes we'll be discussing in the chapter of agriculture. So let's go to the current topic. After that, what is the other environmental issues in regional planning? Suppose if I'm talking about industrialization, there are many environmental issues associated with industrialization, like air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, urbanization is also one of the environmental issue that can happen with this developmental practice. Then what? Deforestation is also one such detrimental practice of industrialization. So these things you can quote as developmental issues for industrialization. I repeat, all forms of pollution, urbanization, deforestation, these are issues, environmental issues associated with industrial development. And then hydrology and environmental issues, or you can say how River Valley developmental project will lead to environmental issues. So let me tell you, hydrology in Parambo. What is hydrology? River Valley projects, I've given you one more word for it. What is hydrology? Construction of dams. As I have told you right now, construction of dams will lead to siltation issues. Construction of dams will lead to submergence of land. Construction of dams will lead to displacement of the local tribal people or the local people, displacement of people. Submergence of land, displacement of the people, so rehabilitation problems will arise, livelihood will be affected of these people, as well as it will lead to huge large scale destroyal of land resource. It will lead to large scale destroyal of land resource. It might also lead to environmental issues like flooding if not properly planned. And the next issue that we are going to read about is urbanization and environmental issues. Urbanization and its related environmental issues. Let me quickly take this. What is BGREI? BGREI, what is it? Bringing Green Revolution to Eastern India. All right. So urbanization and environmental issues. Again, there will be problems like pollution. There will be problems like emergence of slums and squatter settlements. Urban heat island is one such problem. Urban heat island is one such problem. Concretization of land. Loss of or absence of green spaces. Community parks. That is one problem. So these are the problems which you should be taking into account when you are bringing, when you are charting, when you are making some regional planning process in an urban area. So from urban area, what are the regional developmental problems with respect to environment? I have listed it out here. Then next thing, next regional developmental issues pertaining to environment. Next one, population explosion and environmental issues. Population explosion and environmental issues. So again, if I'm talking about population explosion, obviously it will lead to over exploitation of resources. It will lead to over exploitation of resources. It will lead to pressure on land. Pressure on land as man-land ratio will drop considerably. What is man-land ratio? What is man-land ratio? See, any particular individual, any particular man needs a certain amount of land for maybe for cultivation, maybe for settlement, maybe for doing his business. This man-land ratio will be considerably reduced because of the excessive pressure on land. Overpopulation on it, which means there will be pressure on land. We will be fighting for even 1 cent of land, 1 square feet of land. Okay, so that is one problem with respect to population explosion. Then resource crunch, fight for resources. Sons of soil theory. Take notes. Sons of soil theory can happen. What is sons of soil theory? Basically, if you are belonging to Kerala, you should alone come and work in Kerala. So these kinds of fights will start coming up in our country. Population explosion is a basic problem. Resource fight. For one seat in IIT, everybody will be fighting. For one good seat in an engineering college, everybody will be fighting. For one seat in a hospital, if there is a pandemic that is going on, for one seat, for one bed in hospital, people will be fighting. That is resource fight. These are the modern age resource fights, that whatever I've told you, fighting for education institution, fighting for good hospital services during the times of pandemic. These are modern age fights which we are witnessing. Previously, we were fighting for land. We were fighting for water. Water fight is an eternal problem. It will always continue. It will keep continuing in India. Kerala has not seen such water problems, luckily, I believe. But go to places like far end of Tamil Nadu, you can see what water means to people. Everybody will conserve even a bucket of water. So water problem is a very serious problem. So yeah, what am I discussing? Population issues. Apart from this, there will be man-animal conflict will increase in a large scale. This is something that Kerala has known. You destroy Western Ghats, tigers will come, leopards will come, elephants will come, some wild ass will come to your hometown. Everything can happen. Yes, in resorts, most of the Kerala resorts, which they construct in the Western Ghats, late at night you can see a wild ass entering into the resort. You can see some many living beings. You can see elephants that is walking down the streets. Man-animal conflict will become a common thing because of population explosion. You are entering into the lands of the forest. The man-animal conflict will naturally increase. And then we have to discuss about engineering works and its related environmental issues. engineering works and its related environmental issues. I'm constructing a dam. I'm constructing a tunnel, a road tunnel. I'm constructing a railway line in a hilly area. First thing is I need to make sure that it might lead to future seismicity, reservoir induced seismicity. I've used this term before, right? Reservoir induced seismicity can happen in the future. Also, construction of a dam, a road tunnel, etc. in a hilly area will put excessive pressure on the fragile environments. Mountainous regions are very pristine. Pristine, they are very pure. Pristine environments, pure environments. If you're putting pressure on those areas, it will obviously destroy the ecological conditions that is present in those regions. Apart from this, let us continue our discussion. Apart from this, because of the faulty regional planning, we can discuss even more, like wrong city designing, which is leading to man-made urban floods, unplanned migration, which is further increasing the population pressure on cities, which is also population pressure on cities, which is also a faulty regional planning process, which is also an issue of regional practice upon environment, which is also an issue of regional planning upon environment. Then disposal of untreated sewage and industrial effluents, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, etc. All this you can include as points in environmental issues of regional planning. All right. That concludes chapter number 4, which is regional planning. Any doubts in any of the points that we have discussed so far? I shall move to regional development and planning, chapter number 8 now. If there is something, maybe you can put it in the chat box. Chapter number 8, we are moving to chapter 8, regional development and planning, paper 2. Paper 2, chapter number 8. The first thing is we need to look at the syllabus. So they are asking experience of regional planning in India. What about the 5-year plans? What about the integrated rural development programs, Panchayati Raj and decentralized planning, command area development, watershed management, planning for backward areas, desert areas, drought-prone areas, hill tribal area development, multi-level planning, and finally planning for island territories. These are the topics that was given in your chapter number 8. So we will start with 5-year plans. We will start with 5-year plans. We will start with 5-year plans, 5-year planning process. That's how planning began in India. So we will start with 5-year plans. And one thing that I need to tell you is 5-year plans and this entire thing, not entire thing, but at least 5-year plans is very theoretical. It's highly theoretical. Has 5-year plans been done maybe in your economics classes? Has 5-year plans done in your economic classes?
No, ma'am, അങ്ങനെ detail ആയിട്ട് എടുത്തില്ലായിരുന്നു.
Okay. So we will do 5-year plans from the perspective of what is needed in your exam. Okay. But we'll be analyzing about most of the 5-year plans, important ones. So let's start this. But this is, I repeat, this is hardcore theory. This is hardcore theory. There's nothing to be explained as such, but let me try to be as specific as possible. So this 5-year plan is something you can say is a thought process of two people. Who are they? Who wanted to set up 5-year plans for India? One is Nehru. Who's the other person? History also it is there. In your spectrum book also it's there. That's why I'm asking you. Anybody? It is Bose. Bose and Nehru. Both of them wanted to undertake planning. So when these two people joined, naturally Gandhi also accepted it. Because Bose and Gandhi, they cannot, they are not that friendly with each other. But Nehru and Gandhi are friends. Like Gandhi himself said that he is my successor, right? So when these people joined forces, Gandhi also naturally said, "Come on, let's start a planning process." And that's how National Planning Committee of INC was set up, of the Indian National Congress was set up. And later on, post independence, it was carried forward in the name of Planning Commission also. So after that, after some point of time, this planning commission it tried to reduce regional disparities. It brought in 5-year plans. The commendable work has been done by 5-year plans till up to 1980s and stuff like that, till up to the late 1980s. But later on, LPG reform started, and thereafter, slowly, we started to feel that maybe it is not necessary to conduct such 5-year plans. And then thereafter, we stopped with the 12th 5-year plan. And thereafter, what happened? We had the we had the organization of Niti Aayog, right? Niti Aayog took its place. So Niti Aayog came into picture. So we have both after this Niti Aayog also, we still do have some micro level planning processes. We still do have some micro level projects, regional development projects that has been undertaken. One example which you can easily connect with is Kerala Kuttanad Development Project. Kerala Kuttanad Development Project. So this was similarly, we have Rajasthan desert area developmental planning. We have Vidarbha based developmental projects and so on. With respect to Kerala, we can quote this Kuttanad Developmental Project. It is a micro level regional planning project. It is a micro level regional planning project. So 5-year plans, first of all, 5-year plans, it tried to increase the levels of industrialization. It tried to increase the levels of economic potential and so on. Now the first 5-year plan. The first 5-year plan, it was a very balanced developmental plan. It tried to increase the income levels and to improve the overall living standards of people. Income levels and overall living standards of people. One thing which was sincerely undertaken by the first 5-year plan is irrigation projects, dam construction and irrigation projects. So by that, we have projects like, we have multi-purpose river valley projects like, or irrigation projects like Bakranangal, I'll write it up, Bakranangal, Hirakud, Rihand, Damodar Valley Corporation. Apart from this, apart from these river valley projects, apart from these dam construction and irrigation projects, we also have regional developmental strategies. Regional developmental strategies in the form of various multi-purpose projects, in the form of various multi-purpose projects like in providing irrigation, flood control, energy supply, and economic activities like fishing and aquaculture, etc. Okay, so that is about multi-purpose project. Second 5-year plan, we moved on to, so first 5-year plan was between 1951 to 1955. Second 5-year plan was between 1956 to 61. Now they thought, let us construct industries this time. Here the focus was basically on agriculture. So here they thought, let me focus on industries this time. Industrial clusters was developed. Just a second. Industrial clusters were developed, that is in Bhilai, Rourkela, Durgapur, etc. So this was the very famously called as Nehru-Mahalanobis plan, right? It was called as the Nehru-Mahalanobis model, and they thought, let us construct some industrial clusters, and we will be having the effect of growth pole strategy. We'll be having the effect of growth pole strategy, and there will be trickling down that will happen. There will be trickling down that will happen, and therefore all the backward regions will be improved. But what is the outcome of the second 5-year plan? The outcome is, yes, we have developed some heavy industries like iron and steel, chemical fertilizers, heavy engineering industries, etc. But the trickling down has been minimalistic. The trickling down has been minimalistic. Also, the second outcome was agriculture was completely neglected and regional disparities started to increase. The idea also was in the second 5-year plan, the idea was to set up a socialist pattern of society. Socialist pattern of society. Okay, so that is it about the second 5-year plan, which was entirely an industrial based plan and not an agricultural based plan. Coming to the third one, the third 5-year plan was between 1961 to 66. The objective, the very first objective was, let us try to eliminate the intra-state disparity. Let us try to increase the national income. Let us try to acquire self-sufficiency in food grains. That is important. Let us try to secure or acquire self-sufficiency in food grains. Let us try to increase the national income. Number 2. Third one, let us try to increase the industrial base. It is aimed at utilizing manpower resources for substantial employment opportunities. And the basic ideology was, let us remove regional disparity, let us emphasize on growth centers and growth poles. And that is why, if you see, many industries came up in specific backward regions. Like in Jharkhand, fertilizer plants were set up. In Madhya Pradesh, cement factories were set up. So such things came into focus. But sadly, this was the period where India saw two great wars. One was the Chinese invasion of 1962, and the other one was Pakistani war of 1965. India was completely devastated at the end of the third five-year plan. Nothing could be operated successfully because of the drainage of resources for these two wars. We started to spend so much on these two wars, and therefore, later on, the focus of the plan got slowly shifted from development to defense expenditure. And we have 3 annual plans. Which is called as Plan Holiday, because of the excessive wars that happened, also because of the severe droughts that accompanied during the 1966 to 69 period. We thought, let us not have a 5-year plan, let us have a plan holiday, and let us make this, you put it in double quotes, plan holiday, put it in double quotes, and let us have 3 annual plans. Let us have 3 annual plans. And this started from the year of 1966 to 1969. And this period saw 2 successive years of drought in 1965-66 and 66-67. I repeat, this period saw 2 successive droughts, severe droughts, in 1965-66 and 66-67. There was a general rise in prices, and we witnessed extreme shortage of food grains, which led to import dependence from USA. Can anybody tell me what is that scheme? Import dependence scheme from USA? These things you might have done in your economics. I'm sure you might have done in economics. Maybe you would have forgotten. It is PL 480 program. This is a very famous thing. PL 480 program. This shook Indira Gandhi. If something completely had shaken Indira Gandhi, it was PL 480. She was extremely angry with that, and she said, "I want green revolution, or else I'm not going to. I'm not going to be satisfied unless green revolution comes into picture." So PL 480 was, we were literally begging United States of America for food. We were literally begging the USA for food. So that is extreme shortage of food grains, leading to import dependence on USA under a very famous scheme called as PL 480. All right. And after that, we started the Green Revolution. A new agricultural strategy was formed, wherein we started to talk about high yielding variety of seeds, extensive use of fertilizers, and maximum exploitation of irrigation potential. These are the 3 important core ideas behind the Green Revolution. High yielding variety of seeds and extensive use of fertilizers are very, very important when you're talking about Green Revolution. All right. And then we launched the fourth 5-year plan, that is between 1969 to 74. 1969 to 74. And here, interestingly, we launched very specific regional development programs, not just in this one and in the fifth 5-year plan. We'll be launching very specific regional development programs like drought prone area program, and we launched certain backward area development programs that includes certain backward area developmental projects that includes Bundelkhand and Dandakaranya developmental project. Bundelkhand developmental project and Dandakaranya developmental project. So Bundelkhand, basically we are talking about regions of MP, UP, which is a very, very impoverished region, So that developmental program is what we call it as the Bundelkhand developmental region. It's a semi-arid region, a very dry region, and it's comprising of districts of Uttar Pradesh as well as Madhya Pradesh. And then coming to Dandakaranya region, again a left-wing extremism affected region. Mostly it includes parts of Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Jharkhand, parts of Jharkhand, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh. Basically, left-wing extremism affected areas. So I'll repeat. It consists of Chhattisgarh, Odisha, parts of Jharkhand, parts of Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh. So that is my Dandakaranya region. But let me tell you, it is an extensively mineral well-owned region. It is a highly mineral well-owned region, but it is having extreme backwardness. So these two backward area developmental projects was initiated. Apart from this, apart from the regional developmental programs, we also have Rural Electrification Corporation, which led to rural specific, improvement developmental program, because this led to a lot of electrification in terms of the rural areas, and it led to kind of some focus was given to rural area development. Okay, so those are the important developmental programs which was launched by the fourth 5-year plan. Coming to the fifth 5-year plan, now if you analyze the discussion that I'm making, you can observe one thing. We are not discussing the 5-year plans from the perspective of economics. We are discussing 5-year plans from the perspective of geography alone. We are doing it for the sake of regional planning. So mostly our focus should be around regional planning oriented schemes. All right. So this is something that if asked to write about the history of 5-year plans with respect to regional planning, this will be enough. This notes that I'm giving you orally, that if you're taking running notes, that will be enough. But we will be giving you some printed material also. But the printed material has too much of information. That will not be necessary. Your notes will be much more than enough. Right. Now coming to fifth 5-year plan, they also have some special regional development programs. Out of that, let me tell you, Command Area Development Program, and Tribal Area Development Program, Hill Area Development Program, Tribal Area Development Program, Hill Area Development Program, these were given much more focus. These were given much more focus. The idea behind Command Area Development Program is to maximize the productivity in terms of agriculture by using maximum resource potential of the irrigation projects, by using maximum productivity, to improve the productivity of the agriculture by using the maximum resource potential of irrigation projects. All right, so that is the idea behind the 5th 5-year plan. So many focus was given with respect to construction of field canals to ensure that irrigation projects have been launched successfully. So those are the ideas behind Command Area Developmental Project. Apart from that, some targeted projects was also undertaken for specific group people, like those who settle in the hills and for the tribes. So various subsidies was given, and then there were specific tribal area programs and hill area development programs. This we'll be analyzing in detail, but not here, maybe somewhere else. Right. So we'll stop the discussion for now here, and the rest of the 5-year plans we'll be doing in the next session. Thank you so much.